Hello, friends and colleagues. Thank you for being here again. I am excited to introduce the next set of speakers here from Southeast Missouri. And they are nurses down there, and they are here to talk to us about their success increasing vaccination rates for meningitis B. So I am, again, proud and excited to announce them. Do you guys want to come on up as I introduce you? Maybe that sounds good. So one of the first speakers is Barbara Chimienti. She is the nurse supervisor at the Mississippi County Health Department. She started her public health career as an LPN there in 2012. Since then, she has earned her Bachelor of Science and nursing degree while raising her 4 kiddos. She says it's her passion for public health that propelled her to her current position as the nurse supervisor. In addition to training new nurses to be passionate about public health, her job includes everything vaccine related, from ordering of supplies to managing vaccine clinics and drive-through events. Barbara believes in serving others and that education is the key to improving community health. And, as we all know, that it takes a collaboration of all healthcare providers in the community to maximize the health of all they serve. Joining Barbara is Heather. Heather McNeal is the public health manager and vaccine coordinator at the Butler County Health Department. She is a proud mother of 3 wonderful teenage boys. She explored many different career paths and finally found her calling as a public health nurse and critical care nurse. Her favorite part of being a nurse is making a difference in the lives of her patients and their families and seeing how that impacts her community. Last but not least, we have Lisa Slusher. Lisa is the immunization nurse coordinator at the Cape Girardeau County Health Department. Is it County Health Department, Public Health Center? Okay. She obtained her Associate of Nursing degree from Southeast Missouri Hospital College of Nursing and Health Sciences and has been in the healthcare field for 12 years, the past 2 of them in public health. Her job includes overseeing all immunization clinics, vaccines, supplies, inventory, and coordinating school and community vaccine clinics. Lisa believes everyone deserves the opportunity to be vaccinated, and so she ensures the health department has community outreach clinics to reach as many patients as they can. Thank you for welcoming these next speakers. Okay. All right.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So the 3 of us are going to go over meningitis B and how to increase your vaccination rates with that. So by a show of hands in the room, who has had any experience with meningitis, either yourself or taking care of patients? So a few, but not many. It's not common, but it does happen. And the disease can make quite the impact. So as healthcare providers, we want to be superheroes, right? And it takes 2. It takes 2 vaccines, 2 shots in the series, and then there's 2 to choose from. So the impacts could range anywhere from skin rashes to prosthetic legs, partial amputation, or skin and tissue damage. You saw from the video even the lasting effects. In as few as 24 hours, the symptoms could even result in death. 10 to 15% of those diagnosed die from complications. 11 to 19% suffer long-term consequences, just as the lady in that video, that could be hearing loss, limb loss, kidney damage, seizures, or skin scarring. And then there's 5 to 10% who are asymptomatic carriers. So who's at risk? Again, it is uncommon, but high school and college age students are more likely to engage in the behaviors that are associated with the risk factors. It's spread via coughing and sneezing, sharing drinks or utensils, kissing, and living in close quarters. Everything the college age kiddos do. There was a study from 2016 to 18 where serogroup B caused more than half of all the meningococcal cases in the United States in those aged 16 to 23 years old. Common symptoms are the sudden headache, high fever, and stiff neck. Additional symptoms could be nausea, vomiting, sensitivity to light, rapid breathing, joint or limb pain, sleepiness, cold hands and feet, shivering, confusion, the dark purple rash, or even convulsions. Rates are low. According to CDC from 2019, only about 21.8% of 17-year-olds have received one dose of a MenB vaccine. That's kind of alarming. So, what can we do as healthcare providers?
So our 3 counties have been working together, collaborating on ways to improve our vaccination rates and the completion rates, not just the initiation of the MenB vaccination. We started with a quarterly regional regional nurse meeting, and we had some speakers there, and we took some ideas from other counties, and we just kind of let it snowball from there. So something that we've done is we've teamed up with our school nurses in our community to bring awareness to the parents during back-to-school immunization time. I've held meetings in my county with the nurses from the different schools in my county, and as well as representatives from different doctors' offices in our county as well, to see what they're doing and how we can work together with them. And then, of course, we utilized our knowledgeable drug reps for material to aid in raising that awareness. The school letters that every school sends letters out at the beginning and the end of the school year telling parents what their kids are due for each year to return to school, things that are required by the state in order for them to go to school. We revised the letters to where it didn't just add the required vaccines, but it also added the recommended vaccines as well. And we've had a pretty good success with that. We've got for the younger children with the HPV, and then of course the older children with the MenB, adding those to those letters as well. And then we've got our secret weapon, the declination form at the health department. Anytime parents come in, everybody knows they bring the letter in, they're like, I just want what's required for school. I just want what's required for them to attend school. So what we do is we tell them what they're due for, what's recommended for their age, and what they need to catch up if they need to catch up. If they decline any of the recommended vaccines, we go over the VIS with them, the risks, the benefits, and then they read and sign a declination form. Most of the time when they just take one look at that declination form, they don't even care about the rest. They're just like, just do it, because they don't want to mess with it. And that's what our declination form looks like. Each vaccine that they decline, they have to initial beside it stating that we educated them and things like that, just so that they're educated, and so that from a liability standpoint, they can't be like, well, my son died from meningitis because you didn't vaccinate. No, sir, you declined on this date. Is this not your signature? Survivor stories. I'm a sucker for survivor stories. Anybody who has been lost to MenB because of either it was before the vaccine was made, or a lack of education, they just didn't know, or the fact that it's not a required immunization, they should all still be here. They could all still be here. We've got the means for that to happen. And I'm thankful to be here. Not many people know, but I am a meningitis survivor. Luckily, my deficits stem to just the hearing in my right ear. It's super fast, happens all at once. One day you're fine, and the next day you've got nuchal rigidity, sensitivity to light, and you have no idea what's going on until they're sticking needles in your back and they're like, yeah, you've got meningitis. And the next thing you know, you miss an entire week of your life because you've been put in a medically induced coma while they try to keep you alive. So, I mean, that's a real thing, but that vaccine wasn't even a thing whenever I was growing up, so. But with such a risk, we want to know, why are the immunization rates so low?
So we're going to talk about some of the barriers for vaccines. We've kind of talked about these some a little bit today with the other speakers. The first thing I want to talk about is noise. When I mention this to my kids, they're like, Mom, you're crazy. How loud something is not going to keep you from getting a vaccine. But when I look at Webster's definition, it is any sound that is undesired or a sound that interferes with one's hearing of something. So that doesn't necessarily mean the ability to actually hear with your ears. It's the understanding the message that is involved with the hearing. So we talk about noise. There is noise everywhere. We've talked about the challenges of some of that today: entertainment, social media, TV, internet, influencers, all of those different kinds of entertainment impact the way our patients feel before they come in to see us. If they are following an influencer who had a bad experience with the vaccine, we are going to have a lot of work to do before we get them to accept that vaccine. Another type of noise can be activist. So you guys have seen probably at some point in your life this picture. If you haven't, this picture's scary. If you are a new mom and you are not a healthcare professional and you see this, you are thinking, I am never going to trust a healthcare professional again because I don't want to stick my baby 1,000 times. We don't see this picture as often anymore, but one thing that I want to point out that you might want to think about whenever people are giving you their whys and what they're looking at giving them the reason is this says at the top by age 2. Well, what if we took this same baby and put lipstick of all of grandma's kisses from age birth to 2? It's going to be covered in lipstick as well. Or what if we put a polka dot on there for every hour of sleep that we missed while we were trying to get them to age 2? So people believe what they believe because they see something or they hear something. It is our jobs to try to point out, maybe not saying yes, but as we learned earlier, but let's think about it in this way. Birth to 2 is a long time. That's 24 months and a whole lot of days. So if we put 2 years of anything on that baby doll, we're going to have a whole lot coming out of that baby. And then I'm going to go back to noise for one last thing because I want to mention conspiracy theories. This is huge. We've all heard so many during COVID time. I know everybody does not want to hear the word COVID, but the biggest thing that we had to overcome is that we were putting trackers in that vaccine for the individual so the government can monitor them. Because every nurse or doctor in this room that pulls up a COVID vaccine is able to pull out the vaccine and one tracker in every syringe that we pull up from a multi-dose vial. But getting people to understand that is challenging sometimes. So that's a lot of noise. If you're not a healthcare professional and you maybe don't have the education level that others do, when you hear all of this stuff, you are frightened when you come into the doctor's office, and that's where our trust is getting interrupted. Which leads to the second barrier, is lack of knowledge. We don't necessarily want to preach to them, as we discussed earlier. We don't want to tell them they're wrong in what they believe. We want to do as we learned and find out why. We want to try to get them to think about it from another point of view, because a lot of times I'm set on something, especially that my husband is wrong about something. And then when I get all the details, I have to eat those words when I have to say, okay, honey, I'm sorry, you were right. And then he, of course, makes a big production about it. But it took a lot of convincing, and that's kind of what we're trying to do with our patients in one way or the other. And every patient and the way we talk to them is going to be different. The third thing is trust versus distrust. I know those are complete opposites, so how can they both be a barrier? We've heard presentations today about the distrust, so I'm not going to hit that again. Everybody's talked about the things that we've had to overcome as healthcare providers collectively. But let's spend just a minute talking about trust. So if I had $1 for every time I had a patient come into the health department, and I'm talking elderly population here, and they said to me, I didn't know I was due for X, Y, and Z vaccine, I would not be working as a public health nurse. I would be on a beach somewhere. And I'm not saying that we're not doing our jobs. I'm saying that we need to be more diligent to make sure that we are doing our jobs. We're taking care of the symptom that they have that day. We're talking to them about their pain. It takes us 1 or 2 minutes to check their vaccine record and see if they need any vaccine. Now, no, we're not talking about all the different vaccines right now. And one of the things that I wanted to say when I had the baby doll up here, but I didn't because there's a lot of you guys out there, and so my brain's kind of tired, was we need to start building the trust with patients when we're at birth age. Because if we can build that rapport when they're babies, that we know what we're talking about, we are trying to protect your family, we want you to have the best childhood possible for this child, when they get to the age for meningitis B and HPV and all the recommended vaccines, we're gonna have a better opportunity to get our message across to them. And then the last thing that I wanted to talk about for barriers is lack of time. So we've hit on that a little bit today, but we have work schedules that can be challenging, especially if we're open 8 to 5, and our patients need to get their kids and come between 8 to 5 or 8 to 3 when they're supposed to be at school getting an education. Public transportation has so many restrictions. If they need a vaccine, they need to go to the doctor. They have Medicaid. It's like a 2-week notification. You need to let them know 2 weeks ahead of time so they can come pick you up and take you where you need to go for that. Providers being far away, they don't have the time to drive an hour and a half to get that shot. So we have to figure out ways to overcome these barriers. And the other thing that I have noticed is that in our county, keeping up with the Joneses is kind of time consuming. So we have a lot of people that are worried about going out on the boat this weekend or going to do ATVs because that's what other people are doing, and they're not taking the time to make their health a priority. So just making them or encouraging them to have the time to make their health a priority is huge. So what can we do? I am a huge component of educate. We need to educate, educate, educate. I read so many different studies, and all of them collectively said that information that's offered over and over and over again becomes truth for most people. We have to ensure, though, that the information that we're given over and over and over and over again is consistent. If they are going to their doctor's office and hearing one thing, and the public health nurse is saying this, and the school nurse is saying this, we're back to noise. We don't know what we're doing anymore. We're back to confusion. So who do we educate? Everybody. Anybody that's going to listen. So talk to the teen themselves. I know that sounds silly because most teens are like, I'm not getting a vaccine. I don't want to be here. I had one the other day literally say to me, I'm not going to be a senior because she didn't want her shot. And so after I explained to her what was going on, Mom had marked for her to have the meningitis B, so I had parental consent. I was at a school clinic. I explained to her why she needed it. She was going into the military as soon as she graduated, and she was willing to get that meningitis B. So we always think that teenagers don't think they need it because they're unstoppable, but a lot of times you can get through to them. The mom, the dad, the guardians, the grandparents, and the big one on here that I want to point out is area providers. Not that they don't know they need meningitis B, because they do. But educating, like I said, everyone that's talking to that patient in the community so that we're all on the same message. So taking time to create the meetings is what most of us have done, to sit down and say, okay, meningitis B is on the rise, vaccination rates are low. What verbiage are we going to use? What are we all going to say to these kids when we see them? Because I personally don't care if I'm the one putting the vaccine in. If they want to go back to their pediatrician and get it, that's great. I just want them to get that vaccine. So if we're all given the same message, we may be able to get more information to them. And how do we educate? Well, we can't just pick one thing. We have to educate everywhere. So posters inside your offices, talk to your drug reps. They have lots of those. Kiosks in our waiting room. If you have an electronic sign out front, you can put it on there. And the big one for us is back to school events. You know that they have a registration day. Get a hold of your school nurses, request to go set up at the school nurse clinic. That way you can give the vaccines that day. We actually took a trifold board And one half was meningitis B and one half was HPV, so that when moms came over, dads came over, guardians came over, whoever was there that was old enough to sign that form, we could explain the benefits and the risk of both vaccines. When we did that, we had very few refusals because we took the time with each person. And then there are two types of vaccines against meningitis B. We have Bexsero and Trimimba, which is spelled wrong. I noticed that a while ago. It takes 2 doses of each of them, but the schedule is different. For Bexsero, it's 0 and 1 month, and for Trimimba, it's 0 and 6 months. They're both indicated for the same age. However, the vaccines are not interchangeable. So if you have a child that starts with Bexsero, they need to get their second dose with Bexsero as well, and vice versa. If they start with Trimimba, they either have to start over or get their second dose with Trimimba, so they're not interchangeable. As far as which ones you should use, think about your clinic and when you're seeing your patients and what schedule works best for you. If you're going to see your patient in 6 months because that's your normal schedule, assign the patient or use something for 6 months. If you think you're going to have better luck getting them in 1 month, choose the 1 month vaccine. And then follow-up and vaccinations. How do we increase actually getting the vaccinations delivered? We are working on doing chart audits with each visit. So anytime the patient walks in, like we talked about earlier, we previously were not doing chart audits, but that's something that we're doing. I don't care if they come in for just a blood pressure check, we need to check their vaccine and let them know if they need something. Schedule at convenient times for patients. So go to the school, be open during lunch hours, maybe come in early 1 day a week or stay late 1 day a week. Change your times around if you're able to do that so that you're there more often. And then also make clinics outside of the office. Go to a work facility if they need 10 people vaccinated against a vaccine. We've done hepatitis A for city employees. We've gone and done it in their actual facility. We go to the school and do their vaccines. So we have to be a little bit creative with how we actually get the vaccine to them. And then it takes 2 shots to protect them from meningitis B, but it's going to take multiple reminders to get that second shot in. If they come in and they get that shot and you say, oh, you need another one in 4 weeks, or you need another one in 6 months, and you send them on their way, we're not going to complete that series. So we do multiple things. We do appointment cards. Sometimes we can do a reminder app. We do phone calls if they haven't came in time. And also follow-up letters. And what we just tried with my last clinic that we were talking about a little bit ago, so I don't know how well it works. We had sent the permission slips home with the students, so we didn't have an opportunity to talk to mom about the vaccines that we highly recommend. And so everybody that got a vaccine that day, we vaccinated like 50-something kids, but only gave 10 meningitis B. So that was not happy for us. We were not acceptable of that. So we wrote a letter to every parent and said, today at school your child received, and wrote the vaccines and checked which ones they did. We highly recommend that your child gets these vaccines and listed Min B, and some of the reasons why, like you saw in the video. HPV, some of the reasons why, and if they hadn't had their Hep A, hepatitis A, and these are the reasons why. And we mailed those to each parent so that they had another point of contact that says, hey, we need this. So I think before we do the conclusion, we were all going to talk just a little bit about what we did in our own offices. Did you want to share your QR code?
Oh, okay. So recently, this past school year, we've implemented a couple of different changes. The first one is on our school letter, we recommend, this is the ones for seniors, we put on there the MCV4 is required, we list meningitis B, and then we write it is required to be fully vaccinated against meningitis, and then we do HPV, and that it's highly recommended for XYZ reasons. We have very few parents who turn down meningitis B with it worded that way. The second change we made was we have changed our consents to all be electronic. We just did this in the springtime. but it went over really, really well. So we had a QR code created, and that was on the letter to the parents, and whether it was through email or if they printed it out, they were able to just scan that, get right to the letter, fill in all the required fields, upload insurance if they had it, scroll through the VISs that were attached, and then do an electronic signature at the bottom. Parents gave great feedback about that. They loved that it was convenient, fast, their kid didn't lose the paper on the way back to school, et cetera. So those are changes we've made that we've seen great improvement with that might work for someone else. You had some stuff too?
I already went over mine.
Okay.
And I just want to add that for us, when we go to the school for the back-to-school fair, and parents are there, we give them an opportunity at that moment to sign a consent form for the follow-up vaccine. So if they're supposed to have one either in 4 weeks or 6 months, we have mom, dad, guardian, whoever sign a permission slip, and we set up a date with the school nurse, and we go back to school and complete their series for them at the school, and we don't even have to worry about getting a hold of mom and dad and asking for consent. We get it ahead of time. So I think the big thing is that we want to put across is that we need to educate our patients, number one, that it's an issue, work together with all the providers in your facility, and then it is trial and error. What works for us may not work for you. But think of it like a diet. Don't try to do everything at once and change everything at one time, or it's not going to be sustainable. So try to do a little bit at a time, make the change. If it works, then you're going to start seeing, that's when it starts snowballing. We tried, okay, we're going to go into the school. We got 10 kids. Okay, how can we make it better next time? And we just continue to snowball and snowball to get our rates to where they are right now. And we're still working, throwing ideas back and forth, trying to improve where we're at. So it doesn't happen overnight. So be patient, talk to your staff, be consistent with everybody in your community and see where you can get. So in conclusion, superheroes must assemble and use multiple strategies that match individual community needs to be successful at reducing the risk for meningitis in their community by improving vaccination rates with consistent education and follow-up. Together we can do this.